I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Oh,
Yeah.
If you were a kid in 2005, you probably wondered, what's Turkish Delight?
Did not even know if it was a real thing or just like a fake magical Fantasyland thing that got made up. It kind of just sounds like something an author would make up. Like, oh, the magical queen asks you what you can, what she can magic up for you. So you say Turkish Delight. Like, it kind of doesn't sound like a real thing. When you're reading it as a kid and you've never heard of it before, it just sounds like something an author would put down. But it's in the same way that a strange alien wearing a 6-foot long scarf going, "Would you like a jelly baby?" does not sound like it's a real thing that would be sold in stores.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
This week we are talking The Chronicles of Narnia, the Disney theatrical film based off The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. If my timing is right, this episode will be releasing on or around the 20th anniversary of this movie, because this movie came out in 2005. December 2005. Yeah. 20th anniversary of the Disney Narnia movies. And this is not the first adaptation, obviously. The very first adaptation of Narnia was way back in 1967 with the BBC. And this is lost media now. The BBC did not like keeping a lot of their old shows in their archives at the time. I believe 2 of the episodes survived, and one audio of one of the episodes survived. So yeah, that's just lost media completely. It was adapted again in 1979 as an animated movie, produced by the Children's Television Workshop, the people behind Sesame Street, with a lot of changes. No, that's not the right word. A lot of the like the World War II aspects and holiday stuff were toned down in that version, but it was the version that I saw first. So there's that. And then there's the version that Kiki saw first. That would be the 1988 BBC miniseries based off the Chronicles of Narnia, right, Kiki?
Yeah, that BBC version was the one that I saw first and most often. I did see that animated version that you're talking about, because it was made in participation with an Episcopal foundation. It was sold in Christian stores and everything, as was the BBC Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, because this is like the one fantasy book in my childhood that was really allowed to to permeate in fundamentalist circles, for reasons we'll get into. But the the BBC live action version from the 80s was just better produced and more faithful to the book. So
it had a really, really, really bad lion costume.
Oh yeah, no, it had the exact level of special effects that you would expect when it was like, hey, this is BBC in the 80s. Again, if you watch Doctor Who, that's kind of what you're getting when you watch that thing.
Yeah.
They
They
made
never
it
finished.
to Voyage of the Dawn Treader, but they didn't finish.
Ironically, so did the live action movies. That would be the what I refer to as the Walden trilogy. Three movies made by Walden Media in the 2000s. Two of them were released by Disney. The third film was released by Fox. 2005's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which we will talk about in a moment. 2008's Prince Caspian, and 2010's Voyage of the Dawn Treader. After the second film kind of was a bit of a disappointment, Disney kind of backed out, and Fox jumped in to release the third film. And the third film did worse than the other two. And then Fox got out, and Walden did attempt to continue the series. They wanted to do all of the books as movies. But with the third film not doing as well, they decided to pivot and try to do a full reboot, which was interesting because their reboot was going to be The Silver Chair. How is that going to work? I don't know, and we'll never know because they lost the rights.
I know, I know, I know. The answer is it wasn't gonna work. I can see into the future, and the future of that is nope.
And in 2013, Mark Gordon Company had gotten the rights to try to produce it. They were also going to try to do The Silver Chair, and again, that movie never happened. Now we get to now, the Netflix era. In 2018, Netflix had gotten the rights to the Narnia books and started producing their own movie, and that's coming out next year. The Magician's Nephew. So if you're going to reboot Narnia, that probably is the best one to go with.
Yeah, rebooting Narnia. The Narnia books aren't like something like, and I hate to bring this up, and I apologize for invoking it, but it's just the cultural touchstone. It's not something like the Harry Potter books, okay? You don't start with like book one is Harry at 11 and book seven is Harry at like, 16 or 17, okay? You don't do that, okay? If you've never read the Narnia books are not we enter with the Pevensey children at this age and we finish with the last battle and the Pevensey children are this age. No, 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 no. Okay. The Narnia books are much more like something akin to more like the expanded Middle Earth books or the expanded Westeros kind of George R.R. Martin books. And I mean the expanded ones, which is, you've got like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, Prince Caspian, and Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which are very much about the Pevensey children to a greater or lesser extent. Voyage of the Dawn Treader is more about like their annoying cousin, really. But like the reason that everybody thinks like, oh, you can restart with Silver Chair is because like it's just about their annoying cousin, and the original four Pevensey children are not even in that book. And then like you get to the horse and his boy, and it's like, okay, it takes place during like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like at the same time, I think.
It's during that last
But
5 minutes when they're already the kings and queens.
yeah, I mean it's like during that point, spoiler alert, but it's during the last like couple of, chapters of the book when they're like growing up from children into adults or whatever. But like other than them being like mentioned, they're not really like characters in the book, you know? Now, Magician's Nephew is you can reboot or even just start the Narnia series there because that's kind of like reading the Silmarillion over on the Lord of the Rings side. It talks about how the world of Narnia was created. It gives you the entire origin story. Then it like jumps ahead. It talks about how Professor Diggory, when he was a kid, found Narnia. It talks about how the White Witch Jadis ended up becoming the queen. You know, it sets up the entire story of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
And if you buy the books today, Magician's Nephew is listed as book 1. It used to be book 5.
Well, I mean, it technically is book 5. It was written 5th. Well, actually, it was like written 6th, I think, but it might have been like published 5th or something. And then the last battle is literally like the very, very apocalypse of Narnia. Like it literally like hundreds of years after the other books, like the after the Pevensies have left and their reign is over and everything, even after Silver Chair and stuff, it's like Prince Caspian is like well dead and stuff, like it is way, way, way down the line. And so I think some of the characters return. I never even came close to making it that far in the series when I was attempting to read it, but it is well down there. Um, so like the books just kind of skip around, skip around, skip around, and C.S. Lewis was just like more interested. you know, Him and J.R.R. Tolkien were literally best friends. They were writing at the same time. They were best friends. They both lived in Oxford. I have sat in the pub that they went to like every day and just had a drink and talked about what weird fantasy story they were writing that day. Okay? Um, it is a very interesting pub. I have a picture of me and my father sitting at a table in that pub, like, having lunch in Oxford. Um, my father was obsessed uh, with the Lord of the Rings books when he was a kid. I was obsessed with the Narnia books for a short time as a kid. So, there we were, the Tolkien Lewis fans, sitting in the pub where Tolkien and Lewis sat and ate and drank all the time and, had us some lunch. But these books are not as linear as almost anything. And it is a really, really hard sell for a lot of readers. And honestly, a lot of people I talk to, myself included, will fall off somewhere around Voyage of the Dawn Treader or the Silver Chair. I think I made it halfway through Voyage of the Dawn Treader before I was like, this is turning into something I really don't like. And I don't think I ever even finished Voyage of the Dawn Treader when I was attempting to read them. I've only seen the end of that story via movie. I only know the stories of the other books because of reading essays about them or watching YouTube videos about them, things like that.
I mean, yeah, everyone who's made an attempt to do the Narnia franchise has always had plans to do all 7 books as either as films or as miniseries or whatever. And it's never happened. Good luck to Netflix. Good luck, Greta Gerwig, with your Narnia movie next year. Um, yeah, will this be the one? Will this be the one studio that gets to do all of the stories? We don't know, and we'll find out.
Here's the thing, and I think that they should look at what's worked and not. with other fantasy series that have tried to do this, especially with Lord of the Rings, since it is the most comparable to Lord of the Rings. Amazon has tried to do that, like Lord of the Rings prequel series. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea to do that, but Amazon made a few missteps. And I think what needs to be done is you need to do, like, find the most interesting parts of, like, Magician's Nephew or Horse and His Boy or something like that, and work them into the larger story of the Pevensies, so that, like, while you're doing that, you can be like, wait, we had a moment where the professor didn't seem all that shocked about us saying something about the wardrobe. I wonder why. And then, like, we spend half an episode learning the, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like where we just have a flashback to the creation of Narnia or something, you know, or like when they meet Aslan, he's like, "Don't talk to me, witch. I was there when the ancient magic was written." And maybe then we have a flashback to when the ancient magic was written from the magician's nephew, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure that you can do, I mean, maybe the magician's nephew you could do like as a starter, but I don't think Horse and His Boy really is something that will hold a lot of people's attention. I think you'd have to shorten Silverchair a lot because that one gets so weird that people are like, "Oh my good." There's a lot of weird in the Silverchair that really throws people off. And I think you would have to maybe like condense that and work it in. And then I don't know, like the last battle, it just takes place so far in the future that, like, I think Eustace might be in that book. I forget who's in that book, but I think there's like a couple of characters from earlier books that are in that final book, that because of the time dilation difference between Narnia and Earth, that they're able to like be there at the end of the world or whatever. Um, so you'd really have to like ground us with those characters because it's the main problem is that there's such a massive sway of Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe really wants you to care about the Pevensey kids. And then Prince Caspian is like, okay, we're still with the Pevensey kids, but they're back in Narnia again and they've changed a little bit and grown a little bit in Earth time. And then Voyage of the Dawn Treader is just like, and now the Pevensey kids are getting sidelined for this like really annoying cousin they have, who does grow as a character and like supposedly you like him by the end of it. I don't know. I never made it to that part of the book where I liked that character. And then like the rest of the books, if you've got a character to grasp onto, it's kind of like that annoying cousin. And if you find that out, you're like, oh, well, no, no thanks. No. Did the Pevensey kids come back? No. No. Okay. And Susan, she just, oh, she likes boys and that's not allowed in Narnia because we're like pure and like she's being punished for like being a woman. Okay, all right. Screw you, I guess. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, many like doctoral dissertations have been written on uh what happened to poor Susan, so I won't get into that any further, but you know, uh I think that that's why everybody has a problem making it beyond like the first three Narnia books. Is like the first three Narnia books are like a really good trilogy. and then, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's like, but this was, like you said, Lord of the Rings movies were the big hit, and every studio's trying to find their Lord of the Rings. And this is also during the heyday of the Harry Potter films, and every studio is trying to get their hands on a young adult novel that can be a franchise for their studio. And Disney had both in Narnia, a young adult novel that is also a fantasy novel. They could have two in one. The first film did amazingly well, and then the other two films just did not have the same impact that the first one did.
Well, it's because, and I mean, you can disagree with me, and that's fine. But as someone who read them as a kid, that first book hits hard as a kid. You're like, yes, everything about this book. I am so into this book. And then you read the second book and you're like, okay, it wasn't quite as good as the first book, but I am still all about this book. And then you read the third book and you're like, it's not quite as good as the first two books. And it's like, not, and as someone who was also into Harry Potter and someone who was also into Lord of the Rings and stuff, those books are more consistent throughout their reading. You don't have such a massive drop off between like how jazzed you are to be reading these books.
The best analogy I can do for this, and it's in my head because it's current as we are recording this, but L. Frank Baum's Oz books. Like Lewis, Baum did not plan out his books. He didn't really take a lot of notes. He was just doing whatever, throwing whatever at the wall and whatever stuck. And he was also trading out characters. There are Oz books that do not have Dorothy in it. So those are going to be the books that are not going to be as popular with casual readers. And that, I think, is the same issue that you were saying with the Narnia books. You get with the kids, and as those kids are phased out as they grow older, the the people that connect to those kids are going to also go away. Because with Baum and with Lewis, the main character of the world is the world. The main character of Oz is the land of Oz. The main character of Narnia is the land of Narnia. And that's going to be a lot for people to twist their head around.
And the thing is that for Tolkien, the main character of the Lord of the Rings, and the Hobbit and everything was Middle Earth. But let's be honest, Middle Earth is a far more interesting place than Narnia. Like, there's just a lot more there. Like, Dungeons and Dragons wouldn't have existed if Narnia was the thing it got based off of. We can all be honest with ourselves. I mean, yes, you can put stuff in there and people have, but it wouldn't be the thing that everybody gets obsessed with. There's just more to dig into there as far as world building. I don't mean to sound reductive, but you kind of already did bring it up, and let's go into that. Lewis was a very spiritual man, and I'm not reducing his idea, but the Chronicles of Narnia really is kind of what if Jesus had appeared to a fantasy world instead of a world of humans. That's not like me reading into that. That's kind of literally what Lewis said, you know? Um, People call Aslan an allegory for Jesus, but it is quite clearly stated in the books that Aslan's not an allegory for Jesus. he's just Jesus. Like in one of the books, and it's one of the books with the Pevensies, so it's pretty early in the series. It's just not in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is the one that most people know. But one of the later books, Aslan turns to one of the children and says, like, well, here I'm known as Aslan, but I have many names on many worlds, and I've visited your world too, and there I'm known by a different name. Like it's very clear he's like, yeah, I'm Jesus.
Our lion is an awesome lion.
Yeah, I mean it really is. And when people were asking Lewis about it, he has quotes that, he's like, well, he's not a parallel of Jesus. He's just Jesus. And if Jesus appeared on earth in the form of a human to speak to humans, then in the world of talking animals, why would he not appear as just another one of the talking animals? That's how he would best relate to them. So Lewis said it himself. If the deity of the universe is going to different worlds and realms and attempting to save the beings in each realm, he would choose to take the form that would be most acceptable to the creatures in that realm. So if he's coming to Earth, he is going to appear as a human because he's there to save the humans. If he's going to the fantasy world of Narnia, where everything's talking beavers and foxes and whatever, he's going to appear as a lion because that's what those creatures will respect. And if you read the Narnia books, in a lot of the early printings, the word lion is capitalized when talking about Aslan. Just like in the Bible, the word Lord is capitalized when talking about Jesus or God. So it'll be like, the lion, capital L, walked towards them when it's referring to Aslan. Whereas if there's just another lion around that is not Aslan, it will never be capitalized. And so it's very clearly like this creature here, Aslan, is very much the deity that we are talking about. Um, and so Lewis was never subtle about that or tried to hide that at all. And he never thought of it as an allegory. He was just like, yeah, I'm writing Jesus. It's just Jesus in the form that he appeared to in this other realm instead of his form on Earth.
Let's kind of paint the picture of what the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is, because we are starting this. The opening scene is added just for the movie, but it does add context because we are in the middle of the London Blitz in World War II. In the book, it's just casually said, "Oh, it's the war. The kids have been sent away," but we actually see the bombings happen and the reason that these kids are sent away.
Well, yeah, when the book was written in like the early 1950s, you didn't really have to explain what the Blitz was or why children were sent to the countryside. In 2005, you do have to explain to children then what World War II was, what the Blitz was, why you would send children to the countryside.
But I did like that they did add that scene, and it, having that moment of Edmund going back for his father's photo. it meant that much to him, you know. Even he's getting scolded for it, but it's Dad's photo. He doesn't want to lose that.
Well, their father's away at war, and they literally never know if they're ever going to see him again. Children all around them are losing their fathers, and so you know it may be the last thing they have of him. They can't lose that too, and you really feel for Edmund in that moment. And even though Peter is very sharp about it because you could have gotten yourself killed, um, they all understand when they see what he went back for.
So yeah, they they are sent away and they meet the professor. And yeah, I mean, let's just get to the part where everyone wants to talk about, and that is when the kids get into Narnia. Um,
I just want to
okay,
say, like, okay, the one thing that got me is they they are playing hide and seek in this massive countryside manor that is so much bigger than their little London row house. So they're like, oh, yay. And I hope that they're doing this because it's a massive manor and they just think, like, well, we have the time. But did you ever play hide and seek to 100 when you were a kid? I'm like, who plays hide and seek to 100?
honestly, if anyone was doing 100, we were playing hide and seek. We were like, "All right, come on, we've been sitting here for 5 minutes."
Yeah, it was like, and also at the age when I was playing hide and seek, like half the kids could not even count to 100. You know, like I realized, like at the age Peter is, he can count to 100. Like, okay, fine, but like, come on, you know, like maybe you got a 20 count, and that was interminable. Like usually it's like I will count to 10, and if your butt is not hidden behind a tree, you know.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, they're kids. I want to talk about. Okay, first off, the four kids that they did choose to play the kids again. The reason they chose these four kids and the reason they chose to do the movies in what would we call publication order is that they wanted the kids to be the right age by the time they got to the final battle. They never got there. Point is moot. Most of the kids are still acting. I think one retired after the films, trailed off, but I believe three of the four kids are still acting.
Yeah, I think Edmund has uh retired. Lucy, I think, is still acting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh Peter is still acting, and Susan, I believe, is still acting as well. So yeah, the kid who played Edmund, I think, is the one who retired. I think he went into politics, maybe, if I have that right. But yeah.
Which brings us to babyface James McAvoy as Mr. Tumnus. This is young James McAvoy. I have never heard. This was before I even knew who he was. And just him as Mr. Tumnus as the Fawn is just. I mean, we've talked about this before. It's actors you would know later on, and then you go back. Oh yeah, I saw him in this movie. I had no idea who he was. So rewatching this movie, it's like, wait, that's James McAvoy with his shirt off and fake fur glued to him.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what might have been the first thing I saw him in, and this might have been the first thing I saw him in, because I'm trying to think if I saw him in anything earlier, and the first thing I think I saw him in, other than that, was maybe Starter for 10, which not a lot of Americans have watched, as a fan of weird British kind of indie movies. That one is, and that was made just after Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So I think this was the first thing I ever saw him in as well. Yeah.
Yeah, he does a good job, honestly, and he makes you care about Mr. Tumnus. And, do I turn this little girl into my queen or do I let her go? And could have done without the Aslan and the fire and have him just like in the book, just make his own decision, his own morality, but they wanted something exciting for the movie. A nice exciting tease of Aslan.
Well, and also I think they were trying to uh get across to the audience about the magic of the lullaby
Mm-hmm.
as well with that bit with the fire.
He's not in the movie a lot, but Jim Broadbent as the professor, he doesn't do much a lot, but he's not in the story a lot. He's not in the movie a lot, but they obviously casted him for a bigger role down the line that they never got to. But Tilda Swinton as the White Witch is really good in this movie. She is so good at playing evil characters. I don't know what it is about her.
As far as I am concerned, as an actress, like when you cast Tilda Swinton, she will do no wrong in a part. Like whatever part you give her, she will perfectly execute that thing. So it's like, do you want to see Tilda Swinton in? I'm going to stop you right there. The answer is yes. like, like, do I want to see Tilda Swinton play literally anything? Yes, please. Go forth and slay Queen.
Like it's not it's not scene chewing, but she does own every scene that she's in.
Yeah, you can't stop looking at her no matter what else is going on. She immediately commands it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do like that. Granted, there's a lot of special effects in this movie, but the effect they have, the framing of her making her taller than pretty much. I mean, granted, that's how tall the White Witch is in the story, but how commanding Tilda Swinton is, even if she's very obviously acting on a blue screen to a tennis ball on a stick.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
she is.
she's not half-assing this performance.
I don't think I've ever seen her like even part ass any performance,
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is like she's not like that tall, as far as like she's tall for most women, she's above average height for most women, and so it makes her seem taller, but she's not like exceptionally, she's not like Gwendolyn Christie tall or something, it's like, and they just make her with the framing and costuming, they make her seem like she towers over everyone. And it's just so cool.
Yeah, she's just, and going from this attempted motherly persona she's doing with Edmund, and then just flipping that switch is that you bring your brothers and sisters here or I'll kill you.
Yeah. And it's really kind of interesting because I'm not sure there's ever a point where you believe her as an audience member, but it's a weird moment where you can understand why Edmund might like, and that's a really cool trick for an actor to pull off, where you're like, well, I know that I don't believe this for a second, but I can understand why that kid might.
There's some very subtle acting in her facial features in certain scenes that shows that the White Witch does not have as much confidence as she wants to portray. This is why I would say she's not half-assing it. And to someone who's not paying attention, it could be, oh, she's just faking it. She's just phoning it in. But it's that little bit of I'm faking it till I make it in the character of the White Witch. Especially, the face off with Aslan, where she's trying to show up Aslan, I am the queen here, I command all, while also saying, oh crap, this is Aslan. I am so screwed.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is that when she first comes across Edmund and she's like, wait, you're a son of Adam. And which is, they refer to the two Pevensey boys as sons of Adam, but they refer to the two Pevensey girls as daughters of Eve. And they never say it in the movie, but in the books, that distinction is very important, that the Pevensey girls are daughters of Eve, because you notice that, like, Jadis is the only other, like, mostly human-looking kind of character that we see in the first story, and there's a reason why. Because Jadis is also a daughter of Adam, like directly a daughter of Adam, like literally a daughter of Adam, not down through the line, metaphorically speaking, but literally she is Adam's daughter. However, her mother was not Eve. She is not a daughter of Eve. She is a daughter of Lilith, Adam's first wife. So she is a daughter of Adam and Lilith. So that's why the prophecy says two sons of Adam and two daughters of Eve have to sit on the throne, because it can't be a daughter of Lilith.
In the film, Mr. Tumnus says, oh, that's what we call humans. So it's kind
Yeah.
of brushed away.
Yeah, it's brushed away, but in the books it's very clear that, you know, Thetis is at least, I don't know what you'd call her, half human maybe, you know. In some traditions, Lilith is considered the mother of demons. So maybe half human, half demon. But that's why her rule is evil and, you know, not really valid. And so that's why the girls being daughters of Eve are so important and so dangerous to her. So her being so unsure when she meets Edmund is, I mean, you know, imagine there's a prophecy of like, yeah, the one thing that's going to bring you down is, you know, a son of Adam. And here's like this kid who's like, oh yeah, I've got a brother and two sisters. And you're like, ha ha ha, crap, you know? Like you're immediately going to want to be like, okay, I've got to grab you and your entire family and figure out a way to neutralize you, because you're the one thing prophesied that can bring me down.
How do I
And
get this kid on my side? Oh, I know, candy.
yeah, and this is the other thing that I wanted to talk about, because we talked about it before in our Doctor Who episodes. But I think part of growing up is realizing that all the British candy you read about or heard about as a kid is really, really disappointing when you actually get to try it.
An entire generation were convinced into eating Turkish delight because of this movie.
Well, yeah, or the books or whatever, because it's
No,
the same in the books.
well, what I'm saying,
Like,
yes, but I'm talking
yeah,
about because since 2005, since this movie came out, for a lot of people, this movie was their introduction into the world of Narnia. So,
yeah,
like, if you were a kid in 2005, you probably wondered what's Turkish delight.
yeah, and it's, if you're an American kid who, I mean, like for me, okay, American kid who lives in a very small rural area and did not have access to this stuff, did not even know if it was a real thing or just like a fake magical fantasy land thing that got made up, you know, because it kind of doesn't sound like a real thing. It kind of just sounds like something an author would make up. Like, oh, the magical queen asks you what you can, you know, what she can magic up for you. So you say Turkish delight. Like, it kind of doesn't sound like a real thing when you're reading it as a kid and you've never heard of it before. It just sounds like something an author would put down, you know? but it's in the same way that a strange alien wearing a 6 foot long scarf going, "Would you like a jelly baby?" does not sound like it's a real thing that would be sold in stores, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and then you grow up and you get to eat jelly babies and Turkish delight, and you're like, oh, both of these are awful. Everything I ate as a kid is way better than this, and I would rather be eating it right now. Like American gummy bears, way better than jelly babies. I don't know how y'all made gummy bears like this baby. Basically, all jelly babies are. They're like the British version of gummy bears. Like how you made gummy bears not good. And then Turkish Delight is kind of like if gummy bears were a giant block of something, but also not good. And again, how do you mess that up? I am a person, I mean, you've known me long enough to know that I will absolutely destroy gummy candy in any shape and form. Like, you give me a pile of gummy candy and I will disappear into it. And they messed up Gummy Candy Tuesday. How did they do this?
I have no
It's
idea.
so sad. But yeah, this little brat, this little we have to resurrect the term for Edmund, but this little coitus boy, this little coitus guy decides to sell out his entire family for a tray of substandard sweets.
Middle child syndrome. Again, he's not the eldest, and that's Peter. He's not the baby.
He's the
You know,
spare.
that's
He's not the heir,
yeah,
he's the spare, and he's got some issues.
yeah. So it's like, and they kind of do expand upon that in the other stories because blah 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 because growing pains and yeah, not the favorite and whatnot, and expand upon it with your own family trauma. But kid sells out his family for candy is the most kid thing. It is something a kid would do.
Look, I'm not even mad at him for selling out his family for candy. Just make it good candy. That's my issue. Like, if you're gonna sell out your siblings for candy, make it good candy. Come on.
Okay. I want to talk about one more character, one more big actor in this movie, and then I can get to the other part of this. Liam Neeson as the voice of Aslan. I mean, he's Liam Neeson. He is he's another actor that doesn't really, even when he is phoning it in, he can't phone it in. That's the thing. Even when he's trying to phone it in, he is still putting on a great performance. Because it's very much obviously Liam Neeson in a recording booth reading lines off a script, while actors on a set are talking to a tennis ball on a stick. But he still makes this work.
Yeah, and I mean, as someone who's played more than her fair share of Fallout 3, you know, I just kept wanting him to tell the Pevensey kids to go find clean water or something.
To take that phrase, if you're going to cast God, you might as well cast Liam Neeson.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
honestly the voice cast just all around is great. I mean, when you gotta cast all the little talking animal creatures and stuff. I mean, you got Ray Winstone and Dawn French as the beaver couple, and you got Rupert Everett as the fox, and then of course the absolutely incomparable Michael Madsen as Malgrim the wolf. I mean, come on. And that voice he uses absolutely sends shivers down your spine.
yeah. The other part of this because this is the first episode of the holidays for us. This movie, this specific movie, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, is listed on Disney Plus in their holiday section. Mentions of Christmas in this movie. Always winter, never Christmas. And then Santa Claus shows up. Father Christmas, give me some money. But, yes, Father Christmas, Santa Claus, Papa Noel, whatever you want to call him, just shows up in the story because Christmas has finally come back to Narnia because the sons of Adam and the daughters of Eve are here to save the day.
It is the first sign the magic has broken. Yeah.
Yeah. Here, Peter, you've been a good little boy this year. Here's a sword. You have to fight in a war and kill somebody. Here's Susan. You've been very good this year. Take this bow, these arrows, and this special horn that will become more important in the later stories. And little Lucy, here's a dagger and some healing potion. That will be our MacGuffin for the end of the movie.
Yeah. And Edmund, you get nothing because you are, sir, not appearing in this scene.
Edmund's on the naughty list.
Yeah. What's so hilarious is that one of my favorite holiday book was written by Terry Pratchett. Shout outs to Sir Terry Pratchett. But in his book Hogfather, Death has to basically take over the role of their version of Santa Claus, and he tries to be a mall Santa for a moment, and there's kind of a sort of version of this scene a little bit because he does a lot of poking and prodding at Lewis and Tolkien, all the other British authors that did these great fantasy series. And a little girl asks him for a sword, like an 8-year-old asks him for a sword, and he gives her a real sword instead of like a little wooden sword or something, because he doesn't quite understand the thing. And the mother goes, "You can't give her that. It's dangerous." And he says, "It's educational." And she says, "But she might cut herself." And he goes, "Well, that would be a very good education then." Like, and so like, it had been a long time since I had seen this movie. I don't think I had seen it since I saw it in the theaters, honestly. And when Father Christmas goes like, "Now remember, these are tools, not toys." And I was like, yes, tools of death. Like, tools of murder, children.
Santa wants you to go to war. Even though you ran away to avoid a war.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of one of the first things Lucy tells Tumnus is like, she sees a photo of his father in his house when he first takes her there. And she's like, "Oh, who is this?" And he's like, "That's my father." And she's like, "My father's away in the war." And he's like, "Yes, my father was in a war too." And like, it's just kind of, I realized that like these were two men who had seen like back to back world wars and just like an entire generation of young boys, like late teens and young men, just basically fed into a meat grinder. And then they were like, well, at least we got through the war to end all wars. And then a couple of decades later, it happened again. Like they were still alive. And here it happens again to basically the next generation. And they're like, okay, this is just going to be the world in perpetuity now. And you do have to feel for them in just thinking like, okay, the world has just fallen into an endless cycle of war. Like every single generation of children, specifically male children, but, is just going to be fed into this, worldwide horror that just every generation the world is just going to erupt into another world war. And you can feel for them in the fact that that's probably how they felt. And there's so many stories that came out around this time that kind of have that same idea of like, well, I guess we better prepare the next generation for it because we weren't prepared for it, as guys who lived through the First World War. And definitely weren't ready for it. And then I think they were kind of both a little surprised that the Second World War happened. And they were like, well, whatever comes next, these children are going to have to be prepared for the fact that, like, apparently there's just going to be never ending struggle from now on. It's just what the world has come to. And so you do kind of feel for their worldview when they write books where, like, the children leave one situation and they go off into what seems to be this, like, perfect, happy, magical fantasy land. And what they find is another war because it's obvious that these men were working through their own trauma.
Yeah, we get, the war in Narnia, the war in Middle Earth. Yeah, it's just that was their own traumas coming out, and I mean, yeah, and it's kind of still there now. Every year, young people are still put in war zones in never-ending war, and it's just, yeah, it's sad because they were right. This is just the world now. But it is, you know, from the perspective of this movie, these four kids who are prophesized to be the one to end the reign of the White Witch, to bring the peace in Narnia, they're just kids. What can they do? But that is the movie. That literally is the movie. These four kids are destined to free this world from the oppressive rule of this dictator and her secret police. Yeah, if they didn't want to hit you with the clue by four anymore. They're literally called the secret police. There's no working around that. They are literally called the secret police in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, remember, this was written in the early 50s, so.
Yeah. One thing that I will give the movie version over the book is that it actually gives the girls something to do, because that was one of the big problems even over the years of the problems of the book, is that war is man's work and the women needs to stay behind, which really is sexist and really doesn't work in the modern day.
Well, it didn't work in that day either.
True,
I
but
mean, it just ignored the women's contribution in World War II, in World War One, in literally every war in human history. Because there have always been women there, and not just on the sidelines, but in the front lines too. Um, as much as you want to say, like, oh, it's always the men, it hasn't just always been the men. It's just that when the only stories they get told are the stories of the men, you kind of erase the fact that, well, there weren't just men there.
I do like that they show Lucy and Susan practicing with their weapons. Like, they are going to fight. They are not going to be on the sideline. They're not going to be bystanders. They are going to fight. You see Susan practicing with her bow and arrow, trying to hit the target. And Lucy just throws her dagger and hits the bullseye in one shot.
Yeah. I think one of the best lines Lucy has is when Father Christmas hands her the dagger and says, "And though I hope you'll never need to use it." And she says, "Well, excuse me, sir, but I think I could be brave enough if I had to." Which is such a powerful line for such a tiny child. Like, I mean, yeah, I hope I never have to stab anybody, but if push came to shove, don't come at me. Like, what a don't start nothing won't be nothing kind of line. Like,
Does Lucy P have to cut a witch?
yeah, exactly.
But of course they do get sidetracked because that is what happens in the story, but at least there's a reason. And it's not we need to stay behind because we're the girls. It's hey, Aslan is going off somewhere, let's follow him. So at least it has the story make sense and not have the girls get sidelined due to happenstance and not because girls can't fight, which I do love that the movie does.
While the other three Pevensies are, practicing for the upcoming battle, what we see what is going over in the castle of Jadis, or the castle that Jadis has, co-opted, and we discover that Edmund has now realized, oh, we're the baddies. Oops. Way to finally clue in on that, Edmund.
Oh yeah, you're Mr. Tums. Oh, yeah, yeah, this kid sold you out. And now I'm going to freeze you forever in stone.
Yeah, Edmund finally is like, oh yeah, I don't want to be here. I just watched you turn a dude into a statue. Oops. So Edmund ends up selling out his family again, in an attempt to save Tumnus's life, but it didn't work. That they're going to see Aslan, and Aslan's camp is where the stone table is, and blah blah blah. And so Jadis is like, okay, everybody, like, let's go to the stone table and everything. And that's where we get the great line about, don't quote the ancient magic to me. I was there when it was written, blah, blah, blah.
I love using that as a meme when people talk about like our generation stuff. Like, don't quote Ninja Turtles to me. I was there. Don't quote Masters of the Universe to me. I was there.
Yeah, it was really, really hilarious. When I was in a live stream the other day, where we just watch old game shows, and it had this college age girl talking about how she was at a bar, and this really old guy who was like, I don't know, he's like 35 or something, and he was hitting on me. It was just so gross. And the host had to stop the stream. He was like, that was a dagger in my heart. And what's so funny is, like, everybody was with the girl that was talking until she talked about how, like, the guy was really old. He was like 35 or something. Nope, you lost the audience, Chica. Bye. So, yeah. There's a point where, like, the ancient magic becomes really ancient. Like 35 or something. But yeah, Jadis and her crew run out. And by the way, not a little thing that you don't really notice until you're watching the movie like 2 or 3 times. But you know how when the Pevensey kids first come through the wardrobe and they're like, oh, yeah, everything here is snow and we are dressed for like inside a nice warm manor house, and there were all these fur coats, so we just grabbed a bunch. Edmund is wearing a different color fur coat, and it looks like he is wearing a fur coat that looks like wolf fur, like gray wolf fur,
Mhm.
which, given that Jadis uses all the gray wolves as her army, really sets him apart from like the more golden fur coats that are being worn by the other three that are destined to go off and find Aslan earlier in the story.
So visual foreshadowing.
Yeah, it's just a really nice bit of like one of these things is not like the other. You know, it's just a really cool bit of costuming. And that goes mostly back to the early illustrations when the book was first published. Is that Edmund's coat is always kind of subtly different in the early illustrations. Um, and then every time it's been adapted into a visual format, Edmund's coat always looks different than the other three siblings. In the BBC production in the 80s, it was like that too. Um, Not in the same way it is in this version, but his coat is very different from the ones the other three siblings wear. Not that they have identical coats, but his is very much stand out. Um, and in this, I love that they made it seem more like the pelts of the wolves that serve Jadis. Um, so I don't know exactly what kind of fur it's supposed to be, in the context of the movie, but the fact that it visually looks similar to the coats of the wolves was striking to me when I was doing a rewatch this time. Um,
And
but
their
yeah,
coats looking like Aslan's pelt.
well, it's not quite that, but the fact that they look more like maybe like dyed rabbit fur or something like that, but that they just have that kind of like golden yellowy hue to it that look more royal, maybe like
Mm.
royal gold, or something more like Aslan's fur or something. It just marks them out as more distinct.
But I want to talk a little bit more because this is a very special effects heavy movie. Some of these special effects haven't exactly aged well in the last 20 years. Some of the CG animals look good still, but it's a lot of the, I guess, chroma key would be the term. It's like uh, scenes that were very clearly filmed on a blue screen or green screen could still, in whatever restoration they've done for this movie, you can kind of see the outline of the actors and the CG models on the whenever they were filming on a blue or green screen set. And for a movie of this budget, of this magnitude, there are a lot of uh if you're into MST3K, you know this term, day for night shot.
Oh yeah.
So, like when Aslan is walking off, it is very clearly this was filmed during the day, and they're putting a filter on it to make it look like it's night. And I understand this is probably because of the kids that they need, that they can't work past a certain hour. So they have to do what they can to make this look like a night shot.
Yeah.
But it just amazes me that a movie of this magnitude would have the number of day for night shots in that they do.
Yeah, but there are some things, like you said, that really do stand up. I was very fascinated that like Mr. Fox and the Beaver couple still look really good, but like some of the stuff with Aslan doesn't look as good. The wolves, the big crowd shots where they have like multiples of them, tend to fall apart, but when it's just Mogrim himself looks pretty good. But once they do like like in the big battle scenes where they have to have like, 20 wolves, that's when it kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back to kind of some of the plot things, once Edmund realizes like, oh, I'm with the baddies, he unfortunately has to get dragged along as Jadis is like, aha, we have figured out where Aslan's camp is. It's in the most obvious place. And she gets there to discover like, oh, all the snow is melting because the people foretold to bring about my downfall have shown up finally. And that leads to a couple of kind of moments of levity where it was like, oh, we've got to put wheels on the sled because now there's no more snow. But the thing is that we find out that the ancient magic that Jadis is wanting to spout at Aslan is that there is a blood pact that anyone with traitorous blood belongs to Jadis. So if you have committed any sort of treachery, apparently your life belongs to Jadis now. And, well, Edmund did sell his family out for substandard candy, so traitor he be. And she's like, well, I can take his life and do whatever I want with it. And she's like, I get to kill him if I want. And Aslan's like, nope, I will die in his place. And she's like, oh, that would help me out immensely if you would do that. Thank you very much. And he agrees to be the sacrificial lion in Edmund's stead. And so they have this whole scene where they humiliate him and bind him and sacrifice him. And we've all read this story before, or if we haven't read it, we've had it shouted at us by an angry street preacher, right? Okay. So they do that while the two Pevensey girls watch and wonder why Aslan doesn't fight back, and then they have a whole cry and stuff. And I will tell you that the reason it has to be the girls wasn't necessarily because Lewis was being sexist about the war stuff entirely. I will give him the thing. It's just that he knows his Bible, and in the Bible it was women that went to cry at the tomb of Jesus and women that first noticed his resurrection. So he is just making a biblical allusion here. With the women being the ones to witness.
Last time it took him 3 days to respawn. This time only took him a few hours. He's getting good at this.
Yeah, I mean they really sped it up for this story, so much better for the battle. So Aslan shows back up as Aslan the White. Just kidding, he's still just Aslan the Golden Maned. But he does respawn his mane, which they did shave off before killing him. And he tells the girls, like, oh yeah, the witch can quote the ancient magic, but she doesn't understand it. If someone who has committed no treachery dies in a traitor's stead, then the table will break and death will turn back its clock. So, yeah.
All you have to do is be pure and believe and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It seems like a caveat that maybe she should have known, but apparently she didn't. Guess it's just never come up before. So Aslan's like, hey, to the castle, we're gonna set all those stone people free.
With his super breath.
Yeah, I wonder if Superman's ever tried that.
Resurrection breath? He could probably pull that power out of his ass.
Yeah. Superman seems to have whatever power the writers need him to have at any given point, so yeah. But Jadis shows up on the battlefield. She's like, "By the way, I killed your lion buddy. Haha." And everybody's very sad. And Peter's like, for Aslan, for Narnia, for Sons of Adam and Daughters of Eve, or whatever, go fight. And they're like, roar! And then the sound goes dead, and then they have a big clashing sound of swords, and it's epic and wonderful and roar.
And then he pulls the Mark Twain. Rumors of my demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Yeah. The thing is, though, is that I do have a problem with this scene. As I told you off mic, where did everyone in this army get bespoke chainmail armor like overnight? Do they have a wizard that just makes bespoke chainmail? Because as someone who makes chainmail, I call BS.
It's a magic land. It just appears when they need it to, like the food did.
Yeah, but we
Narnia's
only
not
see
gonna.
one person that can like magic food in the movie, at least. You know?
Eh, I don't know. But I will, to backtrack a bit. It's Peter having to fight for the first time and take a life for the first time, and like it. Yes, I understand we have to follow the book and all that, but I feel like that should have been a more traumatizing moment for him.
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's something about like I know that Peter was a city kid, but like had he ever been hunting before? Because the first life he takes is technically Maugrim, and it seems almost like it was kind of an accident. I mean, it's not like Peter stabs Maugrim with like an epic hero blow of his sword, you know? But it's like Maugrim leaps and falls on top of Peter, and they're like, "Oh no, he's killed Peter!" And then Peter kind of like rolls the body off of him and is like, "Oh, he kind of like fell on my sword when he lunged at me," you know? So it's like, yes, okay, he was a sentient creature, he had like higher thought, he had the power of speech, all that kind of stuff. So yes, that would hit you hard, but I'm not sure that it would hit him. Like, I don't know. But I agree with you. I do.
Yeah, we don't even have time because the movie needs to keep going. We don't have time to breathe at that moment. It's just, you are Sir Peter now.
Yeah, Sir Peter Wolfsbane. And he like smiles. He's like, "Yeah, I'm like Sir Peter now, you know?" And I don't know, it's really bizarre.
It is, and
I think that's kind of one thing that the books, and not just these books, but a lot of books that deal with children having to suddenly fight a battle that they weren't expecting, like especially in these like magical battles and stuff. It's like it never stops to consider like you are a child and you just had to kill somebody. I mean, maybe in self-defense, and I'm not saying that Peter did a more morally horrific thing necessarily. Everyone can have their own opinion on that. And I'm definitely not saying that what he did was against my personal morality in that situation. Like if somebody's coming at me to try to kill me and my family, I would have no problem with that. But like I'm also fairly certain that if I were ever in that position, I would feel some sort of sadness or, I'm not necessarily saying guilt, but I would feel something.
it didn't have to be this way.
Yeah. It's like, why did you have to do that? We didn't have to be enemies, You'd feel something probably. And an exploration of, wow, I had a sword in my hand and it went into another being and into their life, even if it was an accident, most people are going to have feels about that of some kind. And instead, we just get Aslan being like, clean your sword. You are now Sir Peter, you know? And everybody's
I
like,
mean,
yay, Sir Peter, you know?
when God himself tells you, good thing you killed that guy, you can't really do much else about
Yeah, I mean, and that is the thing. Like, you know, he's immediately, because of who Aslan is in the story and everything he represents, you can't really have a moment for Peter to question without undermining the theological standing of Aslan, you know? It's like Aslan's like, you have done a good and honorable deed, and you can't really argue with that without questioning Aslan.
I mean, Susan kind of has the same moment right at the end of the movie. She shoots the dwarf that's about to kill her brother, and she doesn't have time to even think of that moment because her brother's dying.
Yeah, and Lucy has to run to him and save him with the little potion there. The thing is that, you know, yes, there is a big epic battle, but the battle feels very, I don't know, not even secondary. It feels almost like tertiary
I
to the
mean,
movie.
they did expand. I mean, the battle isn't that much in the book either. I mean, Peter Jackson would just say, "Hey, this battle that is barely written about in The Hobbit, we're going to turn that into a whole movie."
I do understand it because as people who lived through these wars, neither Tolkien nor Lewis wanted to glorify war. So while they understood that there needed to be a battle to defeat evil, they did not want it to be seen as like, but this is a glorious battle, you know, this is good and we should go out and battle more, you know?
But it's also part of the adaptation from page to screen. You need a climax. You need that big moment that's, that's the build up to all of this. Uh, I'll say it, unfortunately, war and battle have been glorified in Hollywood. So you need that final battle to be as epic as you can make it to reach this satisfying conclusion of the good guys win. Imagine if, take your Marvel movie of choice and the final, you just see the good guy and the bad guy facing off each other, and then smash cut, oh, the bad guy's dead. Like it can work in a novel like that, especially if you're not trying to glorify war, but that doesn't really feel like a satisfactory ending for a movie.
Well, the funny thing I was going to say is that while we do have the battle and they try to make it kind of epic, um the one thing that isn't epic is the death of Jadis. You know, we've been building to this the entire movie, and then Aslan shows up and she's like, how can you be alive? And he's like, haha, you know, I know the ancient magic better than you. Neener. And then he leaps at her and he like rips her head off or her face or something, you know?
Give me your
But
face.
yeah, I mean, you know, lions are eating my face here, but the movie cuts away because this is basically a bloodless movie, other than like a few minor cuts and scrapes on, you know, the faces of the children and, you know, other characters. They don't really show any kind of blood or gore, despite this being a movie about a battle between good and evil. Um, and so Aslan leaps and you kind of see her scream and then like that's kind of just it. And it's just supposed to be like, oh, she's dead now.
I do like the aftermath of that because while you don't see Aslan eating her, you do kind of get this him bending down just out of frame and his head kind of bobbing up and down as if he is eating her. And like everything slows down. Peter is just slow, and like every other battle is like speeding up around him. Like everyone else is fighting, everyone else is zooming out, and the world has stopped for Peter as he's looking at what Aslan is doing. I like that visual.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the thing is that in the end, it's less like the children had anything to do with bringing her down, and more like they just had to be in the general vicinity so that Aslan could be awesome. You know, it's
Yeah.
not like the children had a plan or it's just like the children were a MacGuffin that we needed to be nearby to break a spell that apparently Jesus himself could not break. Because that's basically what we're talking about, you know?
Yeah.
So it seems just a little weird when you kind of think about it a little bit. And maybe I don't know, maybe there's something in the books that I'm forgetting because I read them when I was like 8 or something. I mean, it really has been just a really long time since I read them. But in the film, at least, if there's another reason why the children have to be there, they don't do a good job of explaining it. You know, like the thing of why it has to be Daughters of Eve instead of Daughters of Adam, you know? Um, that the film does not really get into it, and we are, after all, talking primarily about how the film works. And so the way it comes off in the film is less like these children needed to be there to save Narnia and more like, oh, these children just have to be somewhere nearby so that the lion and the armies of Narnia can do all the work, and we just need you as our like mascots, you know?
Kind of. I mean, it's like they needed to open the door to get Jesus lying in the right place at the right time to hit the killing blow.
You know, after the battle, they have the coronation, and we now have 2 kings, 2 queens. I don't know how this works as a system of government. It seems very ridiculous.
I mean, north, south, east, and west.
Not like I don't think there's 4 kingdoms. They're just the kings and queens of Narnia. Like, I don't think there's like, you know. But what's so funny is that I do like the looks on the kids' faces because, like, the three of them are like, this is a very solemn event, and we're like, they're giving us this authority and responsibility, and you know, whatever. And then Edmund's like, gonna get me throne, yeah, gonna have me some servants, like, you know, Edmund's like, where's my crown? Everybody else
Still
is
a little,
taking it so seriously, and Edmund's like, I deserve this. I deserve every second of this.
still a middle brother. Still a middle brother. He just, even towards the end when they're adults, he's still acting like the middle brother.
Yeah. And that, I think, Narnia was the first book I think I noticed the trend I hate in these sort of kids' books. Because, you know, after they crown them and give them the worst names ever, you know, Lucy the Valiant, which is kind of fine, you know. Lucy was pretty brave and valiant, and that's yeah. Susan the Gentle. Okay. All right. King Edmund the Just. The what now? The huh? Just to whom? Like, to whom was King Edmund just?
He's just Edmund. That's the thing.
He's just the just King Edmund. Like, yeah, I don't know. And then King Peter the Magnificent. Well, that's just crapping on the other 3. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Aslan.
Yeah,
We know who your favorite is.
yeah. A way to treat everyone equally, Aslan. But anyway, the thing is that then they grow up, they're adults and everything, and they've forgotten all about Earth and where they came from, and presumably their parents and the war, the war on Earth, World War II, and you know, all that. And then they're like riding through the woods on horses and stuff, apparently chasing a deer that is just like a normal deer.
It's a white deer.
Well, no, no, no. But I mean, like, normal in the sense of it's not sentient and doesn't talk and is like a food source. You know what I mean? Um, uh, and they run across the lamppost and they're like, wait, something about this lamppost seems familiar. And Lucy is like, hold on a second. And she goes wandering off, and the other three chase her. And they end up back in the wardrobe. And then they're kids again. It's still World War II. Like, no time has passed, basically. And I'm like, okay, when I was reading that first book, I was like, whoever wrote this hates children. Because I could not imagine as a child when the only thing I wanted to do was, like, grow up and be somewhat independent and everything. And then suddenly having someone say, like, and now you're a child again. It seemed like the worst nightmare ever. It's like such a curse. And
And they
then,
remember it too. That's the thing. They remember their
yeah, they
entire adult.
remember everything from Narnia.
So
And
imagine living 20 something years in 10 to 20 something years of your life, and then all of a sudden you're back to what you were before with that 10 to 20 years of memory in your head. Now
yeah,
you have to readjust to uh, normal Earth life and being a kid again.
yeah, imagine being 30 and then all of a sudden you walk through a doorway and you're 9. You're in the body of a 9-year-old and everybody treats you like you're 9. And you're like, 2 minutes ago I was 30 and I was royalty.
I mean, I don't know if we've ever talked about this on the pod. A lot of these stories, why would the kids want to go back to the real world? Why would Dorothy go back to Kansas? Why would Alice leave Wonderland? Why would the kids leave Narnia when their real world kind of sucks?
Well, and the thing is that also in Narnia, they have forgotten everything about Earth. Like, we see that when they find the lamppost and they're like, why does this seem familiar? And then Lucy goes like, wait, spare and all, which is like, she told Tumnus, like, no, I came through a wardrobe in the spare room. And he's like, spare I don't think that's in Narnia. And so he misunderstands her when she first gets there. And he calls her Lucy of Spare And so it's obvious that they don't remember their parents, they don't remember England, they don't remember. And so if all they know is Narnia, yeah, why would they want to go back? They're not longing to go back. And they haven't been gone long enough for, like, their mom to miss them in Earth time. So it's kind of
And
just a accident, of course, that they end up back on Earth. But yeah, but so many children's books do this, and I hated it as a kid, and I hate it even more as an adult, because as difficult as adult life is, if you asked me, like, do you want to go back to being a kid? Like, no. No, thank you. My childhood was also awful.
yeah, I don't know, but it's that whole time dilation thing. It's that, you know, even, like a few minutes in Narnia is only a few seconds in our world, and a few hours in our world is days and months and if not years in Narnia. Hence, when we get to the later books, it's already been a short while for them, but it's been hundreds, if not thousands, of years in Narnia.
Yeah.
Just is what is. And obviously when they get there, they meet the professor again, who says, what are you doing in the wardrobe? Oh, you wouldn't believe it, sir. Try me. And I do like that's how the ending of the movie is. Again, if you're not familiar with the stories, the books, it does have that bit of, this guy knows more than he's letting on, and that could lead to more later on, more further down the line for new viewers. Oh, this guy knows more. What does he know? We do. If you're familiar with the books, you already know the answers. I'm not going to go. But I do like that this movie has a post-credit scene in that Lucy tries to go back in. She goes to the wardrobe and tries to get back to Narnia, and it doesn't work for her. And then we see the professor again there, like, it's not going to work. I've already tried. So again, this is showing that he already knows that Narnia exists. He's attempted to go to Narnia at some point, but he has not found his way back there. But implies that Lucy will return to Narnia again. The Lucy will return in Prince Caspian.
Yeah.
Like I said, Walden Media had intended to do all of the books as movies and to do something like this, I guess, for, setting up the future stories. And they would only do the first 3. So, Kiki, does the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe have the magic?
I mean, I think it's one of the better adaptations, honestly.
I'll
So,
agree
I
on
mean,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll say yeah. There's a reason why Lion is the most popular of the Narnia books. It is the easiest to get into, and there is a reason why this film became the most popular of the 3 Walden movies. Because it is the easiest to get into. Again, I don't know what Greta Gerwig's Narnia movie is going to be about. As of this recording, there's no trailer or anything for it. I'm curious of what the Netflix era of the Narnia franchise is going to be about. I'm curious of what Greta Gerwig is going to do with Magician's Nephew, but that's a year from this recording. So we'll see what happens when Magician's Nephew comes out in 2026. As for next week, Kiki, it is our 300th episode next week.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Can you imagine? We just passed by 6 years, and now we're getting into 300 episodes. And to celebrate 300 episodes, we are going to be talking Saving Mr. Banks, the autobiographical movie about P.L. Travers and Walt Disney and the making of Mary Poppins? ?
Yeah, it may be dubious historically, but we'll see how it holds up as a film.
Yes, so come back next week for Saving Mr. Banks, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.